What is the best nutrition strategy for losing body fat? I've tried a few, and spoiler alert, they all work through the process of putting you in a calorie deficit. So let's get that out of the way. I'm not here to argue about the laws of thermodynamics. What I am here to do is tell you about my personal experience with each method I've tried. So here are the approaches I've tried in no specific order. Intermittent fasting, whole foods only, the 80-20 approach, a macro split with calorie counting with a protein target, and finally, low carb. So let's start with intermittent fasting, pros and cons. So this is good if you're a glutton like me and prefer to eat more later in the day, or earlier for that matter. This is not great if you have to do any strenuous activity outside of your fasting window, where some food would be useful for energy. Another approach I tried was whole foods only, so that basically just means no processed food. So this works when you're in a kind of monk mode and don't have a lot of social or work commitments, but becomes incredibly difficult when you do, and what you label as not allowed often becomes the forbidden fruit and you end up actually wanting it more. So I'd done this during lockdown where I was basically housebound and it was fine, but as soon as things started opening up again and I was more social, it just wasn't sustainable. Next up, we've got the 80-20 rule. So this is when you eat 80% of your nutrition from whole foods and leave 20% for whatever you fancy. This is a solid approach, but I still think it leaves too much room for error through lack of tracking, and it might take a long time to reach your goals as a result. This is a great approach, however, if you do it while tracking calories. Next up, we've got a macronutrient split with calorie counting. So I like this, but it limits food choices and flexibility as you always have a specific carb and fat goal. It's a great approach if you're on a very strict training regime and have performance and physique targets. Moving on to the next one, we've got calorie counting with a protein target. So things can vary day to day with this approach. It's very flexible and I'm quite a big fan of this. The protein target forces you to still make solid choices around food quality, which is really good from accountability. Finally, we have low carb. So this will get rapid weight loss as you're going to drop a bunch of muscle glycogen from reducing carbs, but honestly, it's horrible for sustainability and energy for training. I wouldn't recommend this unless you have a sport that you need to weigh in for and need to lose some weight quite fast. So after looking at all of these, I have to say my favourite is calorie counting with a protein target. Why? Simply because of the flexibility. I think you can keep to it while you're at home, while you're travelling, eating out. There's no banned food groups or limitations time-wise, and overall it just seems like the most sensible for your average person. But hey, you gotta find what works for you, and just remember, the only way any of these methods work to lose fat is by putting you in a calorie deficit. And no matter what method you choose, make sure your protein is kept nice and high at around a gram per pound of body weight, or if you're quite overweight, a good way to do it is a gram per centimetre of height, as you're going to be wanting to retain, if not build muscle while cutting. I hope this video was helpful, and if you want to see more content from me, drop me a follow on Instagram at Ian McFarlane Coaching. Chat soon.